name is MiRan Powell. I'm 60 years old, and I was born in Texas. I was born in 1964, so that was the year of the Civil Rights Act. That was several JFK had been assassinated, 4 months before my birthday. There was the Loving versus Virginia, I think that was 1967. So those anti-miscegenation laws were in effect when my parents married. I didn't know that. But that was the atmosphere. And for us as children, my sister, I have an older sister, we were cute and we got attention for our appearance. I learned very early that if you are physically perfect and attractive, it causes racial bias to sort of melt. So there's the power of beauty, but there is also our environment was teaching my sister and I very quickly that it was not a safe place, and you had to start collecting your armor. And my first armor as a young child was my mother, my parents. And as I got older, it became my appearance. I don't like the word mixed. I haven't found a great word, right? Hapa, that's not me. Amerasian, that's its own connotation, very specifically, I think, Vietnam. And Eurasian is what my mother called us. It's actually, by DNA, is what I am. It's a beautiful word, and she always said it was the most beautiful blending of ethnicities. For them raising us, because of the time we were living in, she really wanted us to assimilate. So we didn't learn the language at home other than children's songs in Korean, arirang. I mean, we didn't look necessarily, we weren't 100% Asian, but obviously we weren't all white. And there was racism in terms of children making fun of our names, calling us names. The people who felt like it was okay to make funny noises, like, mimicking accents that weren't even, they're not even Korean, and doing that sort of thing. We were trying to survive a hostile world, and that meant we had to deny our Asianness because we were told that being Asian is bad. Being Asian is not beautiful. Being Asian is foreign. It's not American. It didn't make sense because, well, we existed. We exist. Here we are. So during those teenage years, we could honestly say that we hated being part Asian because it caused us so much trouble and heartache. So if you have any sort of multi-ethnicity, you are expected to choose based on how you look. So if you look more of a certain ethnicity, then that's what you are. I can't do that. And why should I do it? Part of the reason that we were so alienated from our Asian heritage, other than what she was introducing to us at home, we couldn't meet her family. We couldn't go to those childhood places. We couldn't look at flesh and blood and see her face reflected in someone else. We couldn't. And because the stories were so like a fairy tale, that's what it became. It could only be a fairy tale. After all of the drama of high school and teenage girls, and we're, the worst human beings on the planet, my sister and I, and, fortunate my mother didn't try to ship us off, disown us or drown us or something, that she tolerated our anger, our confusion, our sometimes lack of confidence, and our struggles, and that were often directed at her. It took us a long time before we could start to see her, appreciate her, and all that she did and does for us, until we were far into adulthood, into motherhood, when I chose acting, really struggling to find any sort of representation. The closest role model was Natalie Wood in West Side Story. But the dream started with thinking, well, if you're mixed, again, I hate that word, you can bridge the gap between East and West. You can somehow become more appealing apparently, to this population. And you can then start to narrow these racial lines. And you can start to show that this is what an American is. So my goal, it became just becoming the best actress that I can be. And I started very late with really formally taking classes and studying it in college. And I had developed a very high moral compass. So for me, the compromises in terms of language, subject matter, what's being portrayed, what's the end game of a show or a story, what's being sold, it really started to narrow what I felt I could comfortably do and what I felt is helpful to society or harmful to society. Then those choices were going to narrow what I could do. And then I married an actor. Marrying another actor, as much as that affected what our lives were perhaps going to be, I also had someone who understood me, that I could talk about these things with. I could talk about plays with and shows, and we can go to a movie and we analyze it, and it's just what we do. It's just what we see. It's what we understand. Somewhere along the way, I started doing some plays, and I was not really a stage actress. I didn't consider myself truly a stage actress. I like film. I like the smallness and the intimacy. It's less anxiety-inducing. It's communicating in a very different way. And the stage requires you really to embrace an audience and have a communal experience that I didn't realize until very recently, that my anxiety kind of prevented me from going all the way as far as I needed to perform at the level that I wanted to be performing at. But that's a very recent realization of how childhood experience shapes you in ways that you don't always realize what trauma can do to you. Those plays, most of them were non-traditionally cast roles. In the Bacchae, which was very a show like the classics, very friendly to non-traditional casting, that was something where it was, like a Jesus Christ superstar. It's like all of these hippies are the chorus, and then you have this traditional piece in the middle, which is the traditional Greek tragedy happening. And my scene partner father was Black, and there was me, and it was just it was very diverse. So there were these really great roles, and I had to work hard. There were, I think, 2 callbacks for that show. And I would say one of my favorite experiences was actually the very special arts program at the Kennedy Center was actually playing a young Japanese Hiroshima maiden. And that, every, I think, non-equity actress of Asian descent auditioned for that role. So it was another, one where I felt like where I won it. So it happened, right? I had a portion of that dream, but there were also the almost main experiences because I was being put in, these are the Asian actors. And instead of just being, just an actor, at that time, there was some non-traditional casting happening, but I don't feel it was truly the norm. And what's unfortunate about that is that there just aren't enough roles to make a career out of. I wish I had a better solution or a advice to my younger self, which probably would have been to choose a different career if I knew what I knew now, that it was not going to ever be truly possible. Not how I envisioned it. I was talking about this recently with my sister, who is really the only one that understands me and I understand her. And she will articulate a lot of what I haven't even gotten there, which she's been doing lately. So my sister, in communicating this sense of isolation to me, which I do think is common for people of multiple ethnicities, but particularly when you are so clearly affected physically and you have very strongly one culture and another culture versus so many of all combined together to just be a melting pot of cultures. That inability to really fit in anywhere, it can create mental illness, you know? You can't solve it. You can only create a beautiful life for yourself. Focus on the things that you care about. Love your family, treat people well, do all that each person must do to own your life. We are finally owning it and saying, this is part of who I am, a very significant part of who I am. And if I don't start really listening to the stories now, they will go into the ether. I will lose them, my children will lose them, our family history will be lost. And our current situation and what really brings us to the present with my mother and I is the issue of divided families. My sister and I coming to understand how not being able to meet that family, what a difference it made for us in our identity, and how it stole our pride in that part of ourselves. And we are starting to reclaim it now. And one of the greatest experiences I have had to this point was for the first time attending the Peace Symposium last summer in DC and being there with my mother at the Congressional Press Conference and her telling her story there, a portion of it, and hearing other perspectives of people who are really grappling with this issue of peace or the lack of it there and what can be done, and accepting that I have blood family there. Whatever that means, it will fall to me. It falls to me. I have a responsibility in some way, and that's why I'm here. My name is MiRan Powell, and this is my Korean American story.